If it's in the very early stages, she's still being admitted, she wants a bit of alone time, that's fine. When she's pushing, definitely don't step away in between contractions just to boil the kettle.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a 30-something with a 4-year-old stepdaughter and a pregnant fiance.
And I'm Daniel. I'm a 30-something and I've had kids for a while, ranging from toddlers to teens.
Hi, and thanks for joining us once again for another episode of Ramblings for Dad Men. I'm Dan, and this is Matt.
Hello, welcome to episode 6. How is your week been? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, man. I'm all right. Yeah, I don't think we've really done that much, to be fair. We've decided to rewatch Afterlife, and Beck decided to @Ricky Gervais to let him know that fact, and he liked the tweet. So We had a little 5 minutes of fame.
I have not watched 1 second of Afterlife.
Okay, after this, watch it. It'll take about 2 hours of your life.
Right.
For each series. It is right up our street. It's perfect. I've watched both series so far 3 times.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's epic. It's really good. If anyone's looking for a Netflix recommendation, there you go.
I'm really bad at just watching TV in general, to be honest with you. It's not that I don't like Ricky Gervais. I actually really, really do, and I would watch it. I just don't. Yeah, but maybe in the dark nights when I've got a little baby at 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe that's the time to watch Afterlife.
There's a new trailer come out for The Matrix Resurrections, Matrix 4.
Oh, God, you were obsessed with that at school, I remember.
Yeah, when the trailer came out, I nearly jizzed my pants. It was amazing. I loved it. And then I've gone back and watched the trailer. It's only a 3-minute trailer, but I've watched that about 10 times and really looking forward to that. Comes out actually probably around the time that you're going to be a dad.
Is that the same cast as well?
Yeah. Well, most of. Yeah.
The main people.
Yeah, well, it's still Neo. There's a bit of controversy going around online. There's no Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh.
Yeah. I read an article that just said that he just hadn't been asked. But there's someone who plays the same character, looks very similar, but it's just not Lawrence Fishburne. We've also been back out dog walking again this week. We've not been able to with the pup for the last 2 or 3 weeks because she's been spayed. So
that's right. She's had to wear this little coat, right?
Like a surgery suit, they call it. But it wraps everything tight, makes sure she can't actually get to the wound, and it saves her having to wear the cone of shame. The vet has signed her off officially so she can go back walking, which means we've been back on this weekend canal walks. And I took her for a big 5K walk today. We actually went to a nice day out yesterday. We just walked down the canal, got to Wigan Pier, and then walked up to, do you know where the Arches are, near the train station?
Yeah,
One of those places there's called the Hideout. We went there, had a nice little coffee and cake. But then from there, we just walked back along the canal. It was quite a nice thing to do because we've not been able to.
Sounds good. By comparison, we've had a really quiet week. Both Beck and I have been off work this week. Flossie has started school. She's really enjoying it. She's having a great time, but she's still at that stage where she was only having half days, and it was weird times that she was going, like, starting off at 12 and finishing at 3. So we've had a bit of a quiet week, to be honest.
She's still enjoying it?
She seems happy enough at the minute. She likes the fact that she's been playing all day. I'm sure that will change at some point. And I'm not too sure. I mean, obviously with the first week, you probably know better with Beck's experience, but she's probably learning without realising she's learning a little bit as well.
Yeah, that's the teacher's trick, isn't it? You teach her stuff without you're being taught anything.
Yeah.
But Beck's teaching role has taken her into year 1 this week, and she said some of the feedback that the children have given her, which I thought was really funny, was around the lack of playtime. So obviously reception, as you've just mentioned, the first couple of months, it is very much playing. Whereas some of the kids, now they've moved into year 1, about having a bit of a different experience. One of the children actually said to her, "When do we get to play?" Callum started year 11, and I swear he's had the easiest time through high school ever. I keep asking him, "Have you got any homework?" It's like, not much. He'll get maybe 3-4 pieces a week. Am I There you go. That exact response. I was shocked by that.
We were getting homework every day, right? I'm sure we were.
I reckon we were getting at least between 2 and 4 pieces a day. I remember on a Sunday, I used to sit there doing homework while my mum and dad watched Heartbeat. And it was just a Sunday evening. It's just ruined by homework. He's got none of that.
Really?
Yeah, that's a sign of things to come for him. Then I think he's going to have a hard journey into working life.
The first week of homework was always back your books. Do you remember that? Get your dad's wallpaper out and back in your master.
Well, no. So you might remember this, but in year 7, it was almost a popularity thing when we was there of who could have the best book. So you could just go and, the sensible children went off and just backed it with that clear sticky back plastic. But the popular kids are the one, it was almost a competition of who could have the nicest books for each lesson.
That's right.
And I actually remember going into Jack Beanstalk, I think it was at the time, and just asking if they had any posters that they'd taken down from films they couldn't use anymore and used those to back it, because that was obviously a semi-popular thing to do. And I remember my maths book had Men in Black. I had that. I had Mighty Ducks. We had...
The Mighty Ducks. What a film that was.
Yeah. And the reason I remember this was I stumbled on some of my old school books, and I was just happy to sort of loop past and see, the Men in Black book and the Mighty Ducks book and a few other posters. Yeah, that was...
that was an interesting read, wasn't it? Even looking through.
My handwriting's not improved.
Your intelligence hasn't either.
No, it goes downhill.
Okay, we are week 28 of the pregnancy now. We are getting into, third trimester. It's getting real.
Yeah, this is officially the business end now.
Correct, yeah. The baby is the size of a lettuce. And I tell you what's been different this week. Becky almost is playing tricks on the baby. She's shining the torch off her phone onto her belly, and the baby's reacting.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that was a thing. But there's definitely some communication going on there, in that she's getting a little bit more aware of what's around her, definitely. But now we can physically start seeing her to kick as well. So that's been a big week. The baby also gains a pound every week now.
You've now fully embraced, as we've seen today, that you have fully embraced dad mode. I would be ashamed to call you a dad if you did not use the joke, let us begin.
Hey.
Oh.
I like it. We do. I do love a dad joke. Becky, not so much, but if people that knew us would say that we always delivered a really good dad joke.
Back when we were in college, we were the ant and deck of the college bus, right? We both obviously went to different colleges, but we caught the same bus, and everyone knew that we were going to tell the famous Apple joke.
Yeah, that college bus was a den of inequity, wasn't it? I remember, so I was the last stop, and I remember getting on that bus, and I remember going upstairs one day, and I must have had a really bad day at college. I don't know if you was on at the time, and I came upstairs because that's where we tended to sit, and I got my bag, and I had a bit of a strop, and I threw my bag at the front of the bus without realising that previously someone had vomited all over that bus, and my bag was covered in sick.
Yeah, the law of sods making your day even worse. I do remember that. I was there, and there was a reason nobody was sat in that seat.
Exactly, yeah.
I'd forgotten about that. I think we're renowned for telling jokes, or at least we were in college. And now that you're going to be a dad, or you are a dad officially, and I'm a dad, let's throw your best dad joke out there. Let's throw one out there now, and then we may make this a feature if people appreciate the dad humour.
I'm sure they won't, but I'm happy to throw a joke there if you wanted.
This may stop people listening.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go first, or I'll go first? Or?
I've got a couple of nuggets in there. I'll hit you with one.
Okay.
Why can't a nose be 12 inches long?
Go on.
Because then it'd be a foot. The first time I heard that, I nearly fell off my chair laughing. It's cracking. Go on, hit me with one.
I don't know if I can say it without laughing through. Okay. Why did the sperm cross the road?
Go on.
Because you put the wrong sock on this morning. Sorry to lower the tone.
Have I told you that I've been going to a chiropractor recently?
Go on.
First, I didn't think he was any good, but now I stand corrected.
So, once again, thank you everybody for all the support that we're getting on social media, including Instagram. We've had quite a lot of questions this week coming through, and I thought it'd be quite a nice idea to go through some of the questions. We're not going to discuss everything today. There's a nice little fitting pattern for some of the questions, so we can discuss them and seeing where we go. Okay,
so do you want to read out the first one, or do you want me to read out the first one?
Okay, so this one was anonymous. I'm calling
anonymous. So, yeah. Oh, we're having that. There's the opener. Anonymous.
Okay, so the person came through, didn't leave the name, but they asked how to meet someone when you have kids from a previous relationship.
I think that's something we can both discuss. We can both relate to, but from either sides of the experience. So when I met my Beck, I had kids prior. You know, you met your Becky, and she's got a kid from a previous relationship as well. So you've not brought kids to the relationship, whereas I have.
Yeah, we can definitely see it from both sides. We briefly mentioned it last week for you. Is that ironically Beck probably knew your kids before she knew you properly, because she used to.
That was going to be my answer, to be brutally honest. Like, how do you meet someone when you have kids from a previous relationship? Meet somebody from the kids' nursery. No, I think obviously we would never advocate that. Do you know what? It is hard. And I've openly said this to Beck, that I'd made my peace, really. I didn't think I would meet anyone until my kids were, around 18, or, they'd got their independence. And I'd sort of come to terms with that. I didn't expect to meet anyone. So I can very much understand the fears of how do you go and meet someone new when you're carrying, I don't want to say baggage, but when you've got kids, there's an extra layer that you want to sort of protect your kids. You don't want to be introducing, a different person each week. So I had that sort of mentality, really, of for the next 15, 18 years, however long it takes, I'm going to be just this single dad, and I'm not going to meet anyone, and I devote my life to the kids. But I think that for me, it came easier because I wasn't expecting it. There wasn't this pressure of I need to find somebody else. I didn't need somebody else in my life at that time. I wanted someone, but I didn't need anybody, and I was comfortable and happy, in my own skin. I see the challenge that people would probably have. Lots of people have different support networks in place, whether you've got the ability to go out and say, go to the gym on your own, or go to a nightclub on your, with friends. If you've got that support network, then you can do that. And that's going to open up opportunities to meet people. That segues quite nicely, really, into how you and Becky met.
It's funny you should mention about you saying that you were already committed into that you was going to be a single dad, and you didn't have the intention of meeting somebody, because I think that kind of echoes what Becky was at the time, how she felt. She felt that, she was going to be single. She was comfortable with it. She was happy. She was devoted to Florence. And so I can kind of understand your point of view.
When did Becky tell you that she got a kid? Did she tell you on that first night? Was it the day after? Did Flossie walk in on you?
No. I think the most important thing you can do is be open and honest. Don't try and hide the fact that you've got kids. You don't necessarily have to mention it straight away. It's not a hi, I've got 3 kids. I don't think that's a
that's
I don't think that's a really good opener. And don't feel like you have to rush into a relationship. So Becky and I met just as the pubs opened up from lockdown for the first time. When you could go to the pub, but there was only a maximum of 6 people around the table, and you had to go separately. And I was living in Manchester at the time. I was due to stop at my mother's because she lives nearby to where we were going to go. And yeah, that was the whole plan. And we went into this bar, and the barmaid was like, I'm really sorry, we've got no tables at the minute. And the bar that I'm talking about has like this huge bar, and then at the back of it there's another room that was closed. And we were just like, well, we don't really want to go anywhere else. Can we not just hide in the back and just give us drinks? Like, we're not bothered about being around people. In fact, it's probably better leave us at the back, to be honest, because we're just gonna, chat shit. And she was like, okay, fine. So she put us to the back, and I swear to you, there was nobody else there. About half an hour, 45 minutes later, a few people must have been trying to do the same thing, getting in. So the waitress must have thought, well, we can just open the back now. That's not going to break any rules. And there was a group of people that came in, and she literally sat us on the left-hand side of the table, and it just so happened to be Becky. Now, two really interesting things happened that night. One is that Becky got stood up on a date, and also that she kind of said to herself, well, you know what? She's going to go out for herself. She's going to dress how she wants. She's going to enjoy a night out and just have a night out with her girlfriends and just be herself.
And then you came along.
And then we met. Then we were literally sat next to each other.
I mean, I feel for Becky at this point. She's gone out. She's had the worst night possible. She's been stood up. The feelings that go through you at that point. And she's resolved to the fact that she's just going to have some quiet drinks with some friends. And then you're on the table next to her, chirping away, hitting on her.
Do you know what? It was the exact opposite. So I was there having quite a few drinks and just getting on. And then she came talking to me, and I was surprised about that. But do you know what? We hit it off from day one. And I think what I'm trying to get at is that we weren't planning to meet anybody that night. So me and Becky met. I won't go too crude into the situation, but let's just say I didn't go back to my mother's that night. So it was a really funny story because we woke up the next day, and we woke up about, 10 o'clock or something like that. And I got a phone call. Now, Becky didn't know it at the time, but it was my sister that was ringing at me because my sister still lives with my mum. And, she was trying to figure out where I was because I was meant to be going back to her house. And then Becky saw this girl's name that come up on my phone, Jessica, and she's like, oh my God, he's got a fucking boyfriend. What have I done? And I quickly had to go out of the room just because it was awkward. I didn't want to say to my sister this was where I am. I just said, I'm going to pick up my car pretty soon. So I went back to Becky's house that night for the first time. And do you know what? I even noticed like little wellies and a little toothbrush. And do you know what? The penny still didn't drop. Like I didn't think, like I thought, oh, she must be an auntie or something because there was no child there. So obviously she was stopping at her dad's, but it did not compute, did not 1 minute compute.
Okay, so at what point did she actually tell you then?
So obviously I left. I went home, had a shower, and got myself into some sort of fit state, despite how hungover I was. But I actually went back that night, and we had, I guess, a second date, where we just watched a couple of films and we had some pizza. And then I drove home, and then she mentioned it that night that she had a daughter. And she was basically saying, my daughter's my best friend. She's my whole life. I really like you, but I want to be honest about it now, is that I have my responsibilities as well. And to me, I didn't feel threatened by that. I was like, well, I like you. And if you come as a package, that's absolutely fine with me.
So just circling back to the question a little bit, that's really important to sort of highlight there as a mentality piece from you, that didn't faze you. You know, and Becky would have gone through emotional turmoil of when do I tell him, how do I tell him? She'd have had that conversation in her head a lot of times. I know I said, well, I didn't need to with Beck, to be fair. She knew my part. I didn't have to have that conversation.
But if you were meeting somebody, that's something you're going to have to speak about.
How do you approach that conversation? How do you approach it? What do you say? When's the right time? And your reaction there of, I'm in this relationship to have a relationship with you. If that means you've got a kid, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if somebody freaks at that point, it's not the right relationship.
I mean, maybe we can talk about this in next week's episode. Is that transition of when you introduce your new partner to a child? Because I guess that's a big topic of conversation as well. As when do you do that? For me personally, it was a couple of months down the line, and it was very much a small transition, bit by bit. Flossie's quite a cautious person in general, so it takes time for her to get used to somebody.
I was cautious of you at first, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, let's ramble on through a few more of these.
So, Frank, I want to find out what's going through Frank's head, because Frank has just asked, sexting, is it wrong?
First of all, Frank, stop sending us pictures. No, I'm joking. Yes and no. Everything has its place. Frank, if you were sexting your partner, then I suppose that's fine. If you're just sexting randoms, I'm speaking on behalf of people that receive these messages. Maybe some people want to see that, and they've indicated that they want that by sending you a picture of their bits. And maybe that then has its place as a response sext. Yes, maybe that's okay. But I think just randomly sending pictures of yourself to people, maybe a bit forward.
Hi, I'm Frank. Message. So what I'm imagining in my head is that this person may be in a relationship and he's sexting other people. And is that wrong because it's not real in terms of that? I mean, I could be completely off the topic there, but that's the image that I've got in my head when I think about that. And I would say, yes, that absolutely is wrong.
Well, yeah, of course.
I guess the question is do we feel like it's considered cheating? Which if you're texting someone sexually explicit things outside of the perimeters of your relationship, I would say absolutely, yeah. I mean, is that up for debate?
Well, no, I don't think so. But again, there's no context to the question. It could be, is it part of a healthy relationship?
Absolutely, yeah. And that if that's the kind of relationship that you have, that's absolutely fine. If you're on your lunch break at work and you get a message like that, and but yeah, hope we've helped you out a little bit there. Frank,
right. Please do reach out to us again and clarify whether that was in a relationship or to random people that you've met.
You do you, mate. Okay, so
the next one is probably more targeted towards you. Childbirth. Are you excited or nervous?
I mean, both.
I suppose those are not necessarily the only two adjectives at this point.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts? What's your feelings? Where's your head at?
Generally, it's all over the place. I'm excited. I'm excited for the baby to be here. I can't wait. I'm nervous. Like I'm petrified. I mean, we've discussed this briefly in other weeks, and I'm sure as we start getting closer to the due date, we'll talk about this more and more. And after when the baby's here, we'll talk about the whole experience.
Yeah, let's revisit that one. I mean, I was talking to Jake. He had no idea what to expect. The first time, I genuinely had no idea what to expect. You've got a preconceived idea in your head of there's going to be birds singing, there's going to be just easy, you're in, bit of pushing, you're out.
I guess it's one of them things you don't realise what it's like until you're there. So I can't begin to imagine. I've had the same advice of two people. So the two people I'm closest to the most that's had kids would be you and my brother, and they both said the same piece of advice: do not make a brew. Because that doesn't go down too well.
If it's in the very early stages, she's still being admitted, she wants a bit of alone time, that's fine. When she's pushing, definitely don't step away in between contractions just to boil the kettle. So Beck, when she was giving birth, we'd watched a lot of, so in the UK there's the programme One Born Every Minute, and we'd watched a lot of that. I'd obviously gone through it before. She'd watched it, I think, partially just to sort of set her expectations of what she was going to go through.
I mean, how did Beck feel? Because she'd never gone through it before. She must have been apprehensive, scared, anxious. Like, having you had to do this before, what kind of things did you give her any advice?
No, because I think that comes across as me trying to instill fear, and I've already done the damage at this point.
Yeah.
I think it's a different experience for men and women. They're going to go through this and they're preparing themselves for potentially a bit of pain and the actual experience of childbirth. Whereas for a man, as we mentioned before, it's that helplessness. You're there as a spare limb. You have no purpose other than just to be there for mental and moral support. With Beck, I genuinely freaked out a little bit. It sticks out in my head. So as she got moved into the actual delivery suite, her contractions had got that hard. The midwives had stepped out of the room at this point. They don't stay with you forever, well, not forever, but they don't stay with you through the whole process. They've got, maybe 5, 6 women all giving birth at the same time. So there's a team of midwives that go through the different rooms, and they're all experienced enough to deliver the baby if they need to. But the point being that they're not always in the room with you.
Yeah.
Beck's waters, they hadn't gone. The thought had just left my head. She was lying there and she just started to push. And as she did, it freaked me the fuck out because the entire stomach looked like it was going out.
Oh, really?
And there was no midwives in the room or anything. There was just me and Beck. And she was still all sort of like in a nightie and not prepared to give birth. And she just made these sort of movements as though she was going to push the baby out. I shit myself. And there was a couple of pushes like that. And then the next thing, there was just this massive gush of water. The bed was sort of, it was like she'd been on a waterbed and popped it.
Wow.
There was fluid everywhere. I ran out into the corridor and started screaming and shouting. Must sound like an absolute madman at this point. And then the midwives came in, freaking out, thinking the baby had been delivered. And they were like, your waters have gone. Okay, well, let's get you tidied up then.
Oh, really?
So obviously, they're trained to keep calm in that situation, but that really freaked me out. Like the belly did genuinely. I don't know if that happens every time, but
how long after did Georgie come after that? Was she quite quick?
It was a good couple of hours after that. She got moved in at 7:30 or 7 o'clock-ish into the delivery suite. I think that experience that freaked me out was, I'd say, about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And it wasn't until 1 o'clock the following morning that Georgie was born.
Wow.
And she started pushing, I'd say, around 10:30, 11 o'clock. Beck will fact check and I'll bring you an actual timeline next week.
I don't know who it is, but Becky was telling me about one of her friends who's pregnant with a 4th child, or I think a 4th child now. So the first child came out in 2.5 hours. The second child came out in 1.5 hours, and the third child was out within 45 minutes. She's like, I'm not even bothering going to the hospital this time. It'll be out.
Don't put any pepper near her. She cannot sneeze.
So I think for Becky, she's not bothered about the pain. She's more bothered about being, I guess, in control. So from the sound of it, her experience was like she had doctors all around her. She had lights in her eyes. It just wasn't a very comfortable experience for her. And that means that she was tensing up. And as much as she was trying to get the baby out, she wasn't relaxed enough for the baby to come out. I guess even though I can't do anything, my role will be to try and keep her as calm as possible, whether that be back massages, whether that would be me.
Let's just cast our minds back to week 2 of this podcast series. Floppy face.
Floppy fanny, of course. Yeah. So I'm apprehensive about that. Of course, it's nerve-wracking. We mentioned last week that it's not going to be a nice experience while she's delivering the baby. It's going to hurt, isn't it? And yeah, it's just about keeping her calm. And maybe, like I say, when we're a bit further down the line in the next few weeks, I will start asking more questions.
There's some do's and some don'ts. We'll cover that in
okay,
weeks.
That's good. Okay, so this last question for today is by Alpine Joe, and this is a very quick question, and it's about making time for dad. So now that we're dads, or obviously that you've got more experience in this with me, having been a dad for a long time, how do you make time for yourself?
Super easy. Buy a shed. It's harder when it's very early on. That's the simple answer. It is hard. It's like when you become a dad and you've got all this extra responsibility, how do you find time to still go to the gym? How do you find time to go to the pub? How do you find time to, I don't know, play computer games? How do you find time to unwind? And you've just got to do it in bits. There's no easy answer to this, but you've got to sort of fulfill your commitments first, if this makes sense. Do your duties as a parent, and then as soon as the kid goes to sleep, everyone can take a collective sigh of relief that you've got through another day.
Is there anything that you had to give up? So I play rugby, and I've had to knock that on the head for the next. Well, I say I want to be back after Christmas, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm really going to try and try, but at the minute I will go back after Christmas and see how that happens. But I also play in a band as well, and we meet up once a week. We've done that for the best part of 11 years, and I've always found that quite cathartic. And I have 2 hours in a band room every week, and I really enjoy it. But is that unreasonable to think that that's going to happen? I guess it's about making time, and you've got to make time for yourself. But
yeah, I think so. The thing you're not struggling with, the thing you need to hone in on more is that flexibility of when you're going to get that time to yourself. So if you've got that band room, 6 till 8 every Tuesday, you're probably going to have some responsibilities that may overlap with that. Bedtime, as you'll have seen with Flossie, not necessarily always the same time every night.
Yeah.
And as they're younger, it is a lot more of an intense experience. So that free time that you have is flexible. Sometimes you've got to give that up. Sometimes you don't have free time. Sometimes you've got lots of free time because mum just wants to spend, or dad just wants to spend lots of time with the baby. So you can go and have a bath, have a shower, get a couple of hours in on your computer games, or go and do your band practice, or go rugby training. I suppose as the baby gets a little bit older, you can almost schedule in when you can relax, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You can shape your life around, I'm going to go rugby training twice a week, and you've got a set pattern, a set routine. Becky then might say that, okay, that's fine. You go Tuesdays and Thursdays and Wednesdays and Fridays. I don't know, have a really long bath watching Walking Dead if she's not caned the entire series in before the baby's born.
And I think that's the important thing as well, is that you've got to realise that there's two people in this relationship as well that are both going to be tired, both going to be exhausted. So there's making time for dad, but there's obviously making time for mum as well. Mum has got to have some free time. But equally, I think it's really important that you've got to make time for each other as well. Do you think that's quite a valid argument that that you're going out on date night once every month? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, did you do anything like that, or?
Yeah, 100% we did. That was something, that was a big part of it, that it was very fluid, I suppose is the easiest way to describe it. One night I'd do the night feed, next night she'd do the night feed, so we both maintained a healthy amount of sleep. But then that downtime, you can have an extra couple of hours in bed, or if you need to go and do this, then you can, and I'll look after the baby. You go and have a night out with your friends or XYZ. And that's good to have that downtime for yourself, but exactly that, as long as you do factor in that time of keeping stuff for you two to do together, that is, again, equally as important as getting that mental health for yourself. Having the strength in your relationship does help that as well, to have those date nights. And that was something that we did. We still do now. And Becky's probably going to roast me for not doing it enough. I actually got a quick jab the other day, because it seems to always be her suggesting it. I will hold my hands up. It is usually her that suggests we do something together. So that's something I need to work on. Yeah, I think it is important for you two to still do something with and without baby.
Yeah, and with and without each other as well. and I don't mean that in a patronising way. I think it's important that you each have a break away from each other, just like an hour a day. An hour a day, like an hour a week or something. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Is there a time?
I do, but you can't specify a time. I get what you're saying, and I think you can't specify a time in the early phases, the early couple of months. It has to be fluid. It's got to be, I'm just going seeing my brother for a couple of hours or whatever. Once the baby gets into a routine and a pattern, that's when you can start scheduling. If you can start back rugby, then you might have to make a sacrifice. Is it rugby or the band?
Yeah.
These are going to be hard decisions for you to make. You may be lucky and the baby sleeps through from day one, and I will be super jealous and I'll hate you for the rest of ever.
So, and I guess it's just going to be a transition period, isn't it? Where I don't know what time I'm gonna make, because I don't know what time I do have, and obviously at the minute the little one's going to take the priority. But I'm sure there will be pockets in about you making the most of that time.
Yeah. But to answer the question, how do you make time for dad? Initially, it's very fluid, but then time will present itself to you. And if all else fails, buy a shed. Hashtag shed life.
I think Becky might buy a shed just to kick me out for a couple of nights a week. Okay, well, we've naturally gone from meeting somebody to sexting to having a baby. I think that might be a natural point to end it for this week.
I think we've rambled on enough at this point, yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for your input this week. Like I say, keep asking us questions, and we'll keep doing this as long as we get input. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you next week.
See you next week.